We begin this journey of selling by design where we all begin our journey every single day. And really that is getting up in the morning, grabbing a fresh cup of coffee, checking our daily planner and where we want to go, maybe consulting the map. But I don't know about you, but every once in a while when I was a young sales rep first starting out, I'd often get to the end of my driveway thinking exactly this is the way I want to go and where I need to be. Get to the end of the street, come to the stop sign, and also kind of question now whether or not, do I go left or do I go right? And I can't tell you how many folks that I've coached and I've mentored and I've ridden with over the years that exact same thing has happened, where we thought we knew exactly where we're going to go, but in reality, we really don't know where we're headed. So off you go to the right, for instance, and you head off to a small town and you know that John is normally available or Bill is normally going to be there. And you can always put that in your logbook as saying, I called on John or I called on Bill. But how effective of a conversation did you actually have? Did it really make sense for you to actually take the right, or should have you taken the left and really seen what was out there and prospect and qualify for new opportunities? And that's where this journey begins with selling by design. It really begins with how do we prospect and how do we qualify folks that could potentially become our customer of the future. There's a process to this. And the process, I think, is an extremely important process to understand. I'm going to give you a quote from another writer or author in the world of selling systems and selling ideas, Jeffrey Gitomer, who writes this one little thing, which is, he says, prospecting and qualifying can be summed up into one word, which is preparation. If you don't do it well or you don't like it, it can be summed up into two words, preparation H, which I really believe is true. It can be really a pain in the rear end if you don't do it well and if you don't do it with confidence and with some kind of a system that allows you to really separate the wheat from the chaff in a hurry. I like preparation because it really is becoming, in today's age, too expensive to work hard. You got to work smart. And some of this qualification is going to have to be done perhaps over the phone, by referral, or other ways that maybe you've never thought of before. But I've got a few ideas for you in terms of how to do this qualification process and how to do it in a way that I think it makes most sense. First of all, it begins with you or me understanding what is it that I really sell. What do I really sell? And I mean exactly knowing what we sell. And the reason why that's so important is because once we know what we sell and we're confident in that, we pretty well know who's going to end up buying our product and why would they buy our product. The next question that I often ask is, who really is my customer? For instance, if we're in the market with a not such a luxury item and yet we're going after luxury type folks, they're probably not going to buy because that's not what they're looking for. And yet when we really begin to understand A, what we sell, and B, who is my customer, you've answered 2 of the 9 critical questions about how do I qualify somebody so I know when I show up, it's going to be worth my while. Number 3 is, why do they buy? Do they buy because I'm solving a problem? Do they buy because I'm creating an opportunity or increasing revenue? Why is it that typically customers buy my product? Those first 3 questions are huge. And also, what's also important is, where is my prospect? And the reason why that becomes such an interesting question for us is because we don't get paid typically to drive. And I know our employers are not paying us to sit behind a windshield and drive from place to place. So where is my prospect is a huge deal. Because if I have to drive 4.5 hours one way to get into that market, it really doesn't make much sense for me to get there unless it's a qualified prospect and it's a big ticket item, because then my return on investment's pretty huge. So where's my prospect, along with what do I really sell and what do they buy, are some key elements. And then also we have to understand where are we positioned in the market. Where are we positioned and where are they positioned in the market? Because oftentimes we could be going after a really, really big fish and a well-positioned player in the market with great influence. Ironically, so will all of your competitors, by the way. If they're that well known in the market and they are really positioned that well, you're going to find that a lot of your competition is going after them as well. That doesn't mean you shouldn't. It just means you should sharpen your pencil, dig in, and really understand right down to the exacting thing that they buy and what you deliver, and then know that you can. So understanding where they're positioned, not only physically in the market, but also kind of laterally within the market in terms of how they stack up. The other element that comes into play is, when do these people buy? Maybe you're in a market or an industry where there's only 2 major buying seasons throughout the year, maybe one in the spring and one in the fall. If that's the case, it becomes quite important that your conversations that lead up to those 2 buying moments kind of crescendo at the right time. And you get people excited about the fact that when it is time to buy, you're the right person. You're the one they're thinking about. And that's important, because not all industries lend themselves to a 12-week or a 12-month or a 12-day or a 12-hour buying cycle. So understand when they buy so that you can position yourself appropriately within that. The flip side is also true. Why don't they buy? Why won't somebody buy our product? Knowing that is just as important as why they do buy the product, because that allows you to prepare. And as salespeople, we need to prepare. Not only prepare in our qualification, but prepare to be able to answer the question, what if, why not, how come? Those are all things that we have to have as pat answers in the back of our mind as to why don't folks buy our product, and rehearse that answer very, very well, because it will come up, and it'll come up fast. Because if you're in the market and they begin to know you, they're going to ask those questions. And you need to have the answer to that. And finally, understanding, who is my non-customer? Who typically doesn't buy from us at all? And understand why that market has been kind of shut off or is no longer really playing in our role. Why is that important? It's important so that we don't waste our time either going to those folks and stumbling over ourselves and wasting time, because wasting time in qualifying is wasting money, and money is time. So you got to make sure that what we're going after is going to be fruitful, and it has the highest opportunity for success. That's the whole process of qualification. That's why it's so important. You fish where the fish are. You really begin to figure out who is more likely to be in your camp and who is more likely never to be in your camp.